We have been talking about the lost art of friendship. We live in a time when people are more disconnected than ever. We've got more connections on our phones, on our TVs than ever before, and yet at the same time, we find relationships tougher. We find them harder than I think at any point, certainly in my life. And we all want to connect better with people. We've tried cynicism, that didn't work. We've tried perfectionism, that didn't work. We've tried showing everybody how amazing we are and how excellent we are, that didn't work. And we need to try something different so that we can connect deeper. And I know it's hard because when you've been hurt, when you've been burnt, we create these barriers, we create these walls between us. And that's natural, it makes sense why we would do that. But again, it doesn't really work. It doesn't lead us to the connections that we are so desperate for, that we were created to have. And that's what we've been talking about. That's what we've talked about for the last few weeks. We're going to keep on talking about it again and again and again, because it's not something which is easy. It's simultaneously natural and unnatural at the same time. Sometimes when you're going in the wrong direction, you have to push into something that feels unnatural so that then you can get to what you were actually created to experience. And so we're trying to say, what do we need to learn? What do we need to do in order to have these connections? And so what I want to do today, if you've got a Bible, you could find Psalm 1. I'm just going to read through this psalm slowly. I'm going to dig into it. And this psalm wasn't written necessarily specifically about friendship. It's like an all-encompassing general psalm, which is like a rule for life. It's the very first psalm, and what it's trying to do is to set up all the 150 psalms that are going to come with one thing, one thought, one idea that flows through absolutely everything. And most people think that this psalm was written by King David, this king who had all of this life, all of this experience, all of the... he's famous for being the best king that Israel ever had. And it's like all of his wisdom condensed into one psalm. This is what he would say. And in the psalm, what we're going to find are two contrasting pictures of what it looks like to be a human. The first picture is going to describe a person who's like a tree. They are planted by a stream. It's a picture of stability. It's a picture of security, fruitfulness, fun, life, laughter, like somebody who is so obviously healthy and strong. And then the second picture is a picture of someone who is like chaff blown in the wind. Now I had to look up what chaff is. At first I thought it meant chaps, but it's not talking about chaps, it's something different. Chaff is like the part of wheat that kind of crumbles away and isn't edible. Maybe you're looking at me like, of course we all know what chaff is. You might have grown up on a farm, I didn't. I grew up in a town, I had no idea. And so it's describing a person who's like this kind of thing that grows alongside healthy things and yet has no nutritional value. They're just discarded. They're just a waste of life, a waste of space. They're insecure, transient, hollow. They're there, but they're not alive. And this is what the psalm says. Let's read it together. Psalm 1, verse 1. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers. Blessed is the one. The psalm starts with this word, blessed. And in the Hebrew, there's two possible words that this could be using to talk about blessed. The first is baru, and the second is ashrei. Baru describes somebody who just has the grace and abundance of God on their life. It is somebody who is just got grace and grace and grace. And then ashrei describes somebody who is visibly blessed. There's somebody who you look at and you're like, that person looks amazing. They are living life with some flair. That's the word that's used here. Think about it like on my wedding day, and I was there with Emma standing at the altar, and you would have looked at us, and what you would have said is, that man is punching above his weight. He has done something right somewhere at some point to be standing next to her. You'd say, I was punching above my weight. What you would have meant is, he's Ashrei. He is blessed. He has made wise decisions in his life that has led him to flourish, to be fruitful, to be secure, to be healthy, to be whole. He is #blessed. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers. Do you notice that there's this progression as you read it? First, this man or this woman goes from walking in step with the wicked, then they're standing with sinners, and then they're sitting with mockers. It's like a progression towards being stuck, towards being trapped, towards being at a place in life where you are no longer moving forwards, you're no longer achieving anything. And it happened not as a one-off moment, but as a series of steps, slowing down. First, you walked in step with the wicked. The wicked are people who look at something that is good and say that it is bad. Their moral compass is all wrong. Then it says sinners. Sinners are people who miss the mark. In the Bible, the mark is to love God and to love your neighbor as yourself. So sinners are people who don't know love, who don't know how to love, who don't love well. And finally, you sit with the mockers, people who are so cynical that they look at what is right, they look at what is glorious and good, and they love. You end up hanging out with the people who are least healthy for you. And this word sit, it's used in many different ways in the Bible. You're getting a little bit of a Hebrew lesson today, but I'm not going to apologize. It can be used to literally mean to sit. It can be used to mean to dwell, to make your home with. In some passages, it's used to describe getting married. The man and woman went and they sat together. It involves commitment. It's a symbol of being rooted. I am rooted with this person. And so the psalmist is saying that the people that we walk with, we end up standing with, we end up rooting our lives with, those people shape our souls. The people you spend the most time with, they literally shape who it is that you're going to become. And it continues. The person who doesn't do this, that person is like a tree planted in streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf doesn't wither. Whatever they do prospers. This person is planted, is full of life. And notice the language in this psalm. It's all like the language we get in Genesis 1, the Garden of Eden. It's supposed to be giving us this picture of a place where everything is as it was meant to be. They're healthy, they're happy, they're secure, they've got amazing friendships. Their life is flourishing, they are overflowing. They don't wither, they don't fall apart, they flourish and they prosper. And it says that when we meditate and live on God's instructions, it leads us to live this successful life. And that word success is pointing us all the way back to the beginning. Blessed is the one. If you want to live a life which is visibly successful in all the right ways, the Bible is saying that that comes when we meditate, when we delight in the teachings of the Lord. And it's kind of like this infinity loop, this delight and this meditation. It's like the more that we embrace, the more that we lean in, the more that we read God's word, the more that we love it. And the more that we love it, the more that we lean in. And it's like this progression, step by step, day after day, bit by bit. as we lean in, we discover we are rooted in something stronger, something more stable, something beyond ourselves. And this is the life that flourishes, the good life. Verse 4, but not the wicked. They're like worthless chaff scattered by the wind. And so what the psalmist is really trying to communicate is that there's two paths in life. One path, which is the path of the righteous, which leads to flourishing, which leads to health, and another path, which leads to frustration, which leads to disappointment, which leads to death. And the result of taking the right path is that you will become like that tree of life, fruitful for all the people around you, flourishing, having amazing relationships. And so what this psalm really is an invitation to stop, to pause, to look at the steps of your life and to meditate and say, where are they leading me? In a way, this psalm is a wake-up call that says, actually, these decisions, these moments, they add up to something far greater and lead me to becoming someone I never intended to be. And so what I want to do is really ask the question, what does this say about our friendships? And I think it says two things that I want us to take note of. If you didn't get any of that, if you're like, you're talking Hebrew, I just don't care, Ben, these are the two things that I really wanted you to pay attention to. The first one is this: healthy friendship always flows from healthy roots. Healthy friendship always flows when you get your roots right. Where are you rooted? Where are you rooting yourself? There's a famous saying that says, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. That's encouraging, and it's also a warning, because what it's saying is that if you want to live this amazing kind of life, you just have to start taking one step in the right direction. And yet, if you take a step in the wrong direction, you could end up 2,000 miles away from where you're meant to be. How do you compete with cuteness like that? I have no idea. Deuteronomy says it like this. It says, before you I lay two paths. One leads to life, another one leads to death. What he's saying is that where you are rooted is where you will find life and flourishing. If you want to have healthy friends, spend more time thinking about your roots. Do I have healthy roots? Where you are rooted is where you go to find your security. When your life shakes and it gets chaotic and difficult, notice where you run to. Do you run to the pub? And do you run to social media? And do you run to your mates? Or do you run to Jesus? Where you're rooted is where you find your security. And it's impossible to have an insecure life when you're rooted in Jesus. It's impossible. Because Jesus is faithful all the time, in every season. Jesus is consistent all the time, in every season. Jesus is always good all the time, in every season. When life is hard and it's tough, you can have security because Jesus never changed. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He is the only place that you can find true security. If you look for security in your friendships, and there'll be moments when you're riding high and they're chanting your name, I'm still waiting for that moment. It will come, I'm sure. I've been told it happened. But there'll be moments when they love you, and there'll be moments when they let you down and they hurt you. And you'll always find that you're chasing after their affection, you're chasing after their goodwill, you're chasing after their light, you're chasing after popularity. You will never have healthy friendships if you put them in a place that they were never meant to be. You're meant to be rooted in Christ. It is Him who restores your soul. To be rooted is perhaps the most important and least recognized need of the human soul. We were all created to be rooted. I was reading this week an article that was talking about marriage and divorce, and it said that 42% of marriages end in divorce, which is a massive amount. But that wasn't the bit that shocked me. The bit that shocked me was that it said that when you look at that statistic inside the church, it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. We often think that being a Christian is enough. I'm a Christian, and so therefore I won't get a divorce. But the stats say that it doesn't actually shift. And one of the things that I say to every couple that I speak to when they're about to get married is don't just assume that the marriage will work. No one gets married hoping for a divorce. You don't. What you do is you put in steps that are going to ensure that your marriage is rooted in something stronger than the two of you. I heard someone say it's a little bit like a triangle. The more that you pursue God together, the closer you get. If you're rooted in God, you will stay close. Ecclesiastes 4 says it like this. It says, a person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two standing back to back conquer. Three is bettered, because a triple braided cord is not easily broken. It's saying when you build your relationships around the root of Christ, they will be strong. This is what the psalmist is saying. He's saying if you want a strong marriage, root yourself in God. If you want a strong friendship, root yourself in God. If you want a strong career, root yourself in God. Delight in Him, follow His teachings, and everything will flow from that point. Jesus says it this way, he says, seek first the kingdom and live righteously, and you will have everything else that you need. If you want friends, be rooted. And this sometimes feels backwards. When I first became a Christian, it was to the surprise of all of my mates. I'm the only one who didn't end up in prison. We used to go and get into loads of trouble and do lots of stuff, and it meant that I had to deal with quite a lot of stuff straight away. Like, it was at a point I didn't know how to sleep unless I was stoned. I didn't know how to have healthy friendships, anything like that. And so the first decision that I made when I became a Christian was to quit all my friends. And do you know what? I got a lot of grief. My friends were like, who do you think you are? You've changed, man. You used to be cool. Now you're giving us like the cold shoulder. That's not cool. People in the church were the same way. They were like, Ben, you're supposed to be reaching out to those guys. Who else is going to share the gospel with them? And I was like, look, you don't understand. I'm not strong enough. If I hang out with them, I'm going to be stoned by 2 p.m. I'm going to be in trouble. I'm going to be I'm not going to live a healthy life, because I know that if I start walking with them, then I'll start standing with them, and then I'll start sitting with them, and I will become one of them. I need to find a new foundation. I need to root myself in Jesus. And I'm so glad that I made that decision then, because if I hadn't, I wouldn't be standing here now, sharing with you now. We need to be wise. We need to know where our roots are, because our life flows from our deepest places. It's the way that God created us. If you want to have healthy friendships, you need to have healthy roots. The second thing that I want you to take away from this passage is that if you want to connect deeper, you need to move slower. If you want to connect deeper, you need to move slower. Deeper roots requires slower movement. And I kind of don't do this naturally. It's just not who I am. Like, I prefer to run places because walking feels like a waste of time. I'm not running for health, I'm running because I just want to do more. I'm always trying to achieve something, I'm looking at the results. I'm very, very active. And sometimes I feel like my life is constantly running. A lot of us are like this, do. We become a Christian and we're like, great, what do I need to do? You need to stop running where Jesus walked. God doesn't run anywhere in Scripture apart from one place. And that's in the story of the prodigal son. When he's running towards his children, saying to them, I am here for you. But then notice, what does he say to the prodigal son? He says, stop and let's go and have a party. We're going to sit down and eat some food. The first thing that God says to you as a Christian isn't run, do, walk. He says, stop. Sit with me. Let's just be. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. What does he do? He makes me lie down by still waters. He restores my soul. Deep places, slower movement. So many of us, we miss this. We miss that deep relationship with God that we were created to have because we've never learned to stop. We think that the power of prayer is in the volume or in the theology. The fact that I pray with the old King James and use these and thous is not. It's in slowing down and stopping. Why does Jesus say otherwise when his disciples say, how do you pray? What does he say? He says, don't babble. Don't just talk a lot. He says, find a quiet place. Slow down. Stop. Remember that God is your Father and he is with you. I think deep down we know this. Deep down we recognize it. Deep down we do this. Like I'm a dad, I've got kids, and in the car I'll have my kids in the back and I'll say to them, great, how was school today? What did you do? Do you know what they say? I don't remember. I'm like, you've been there 6-7 hours. I'm concerned, like at one point, that maybe they've been doing some brain treatment on them, that they've been wiping their memories. Maybe something so traumatic had happened in that day that they were like, I don't remember. It's all a blank, Dad. Don't make me bring it back up. But there's none of that. They just don't remember. And then I'm frustrated on the drive home because I want to connect. But the problem is I'm multitasking, aren't I? I'm driving, we're on a journey, we're moving, we're not going deep. And yet every parent knows when there's really a problem, what do? You sit down on their bed with them. You slow down. You say, I'm here. Let's talk it out. Got nothing else happening. My phone is on silent. It's just me and you. We know that slowing down is the key to deeper relationships. If you want to go deeper, you need to go slower. When you're walking, you can walk with somebody and it's like you're connected because you're both going on the same journey. You're both going to the same place. But the moment the destination shifts, you leave them. Or if they're just a bit awkward, you pretend the destination has shifted, don't you? And you're like, oh, I've just remembered, I'm meant to walk on the other side of the road. See you later. So you're walking with someone a bit. But there's no security, there's no trust, there's no depth. Standing is a bit deeper. You can stand with someone, and when you're standing with someone, what you're actually saying to them is, I'm here with you. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. Let's connect. But still, if it's a little bit weird, you can go, oh, I've just remembered I left the oven on. And you can get away. But when you sit, you cannot escape. You're there with them. Me and you. Talking, vulnerable. If I've got nothing to say, we're just going to have to play this out because I've committed to this seat next to yours. And sitting with someone isn't the same as sitting next to someone. We know that, right? Just sitting next to someone in a row, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about sitting with people. If you want to have deeper connections, whether that's with God, whether that's with your spouse, whether that's with a friend, you need to go slower. You need to move from walking to standing to sitting. I'm here, I'm present, I'm with you. I'm going nowhere. Let's talk. And at the band up, we're going to have some worship in a moment. I think that there's 3 C's of community, 3 C's. The first is that when you're in an environment and there's competition, and you look at people around you and you kind of compare your life to theirs and you're like, I don't like you, I want to do better than you, I want to win, I want you to lose, that's competition, it's ugly, we don't like that kind of stuff here. And then what we can end up with is a community where our C isn't competition, we've moved to coexistence, where we're sitting side by side. That's a little bit like if you drive on the motorway, you've got your car, I've got my car, we're both moving, I don't hate you, but let's not get too close because there could be an accident. Like, I'm doing my thing, you're doing your thing. I low-key want you to fail, but it doesn't matter enough that I can just keep doing my thing. That's coexistence. So often we settle in our culture for coexistence. To just live in the same vicinity as people with no proximity. The third C is community. And this requires depth. This requires coffee, or conversations, or tea. If you want tea, you're allowed tea, or water if you're weird. But you need to have something where you're sitting down and you're slow. And I promise you this, I promise you, the quality of your community will always be related to the pace. Are you willing enough to say, I'm going to slow down with you. I'm going to be present, I'm going to talk, I'm going to listen, I'm going to be curious. I want to know why you think that board games are fun, because it makes no sense to me. Maybe because you win every time I play with you. Let me win for once, David Deeney. You might think, why are you so in love with engineering? What is it that brings you joy? What is it that God has taught you that maybe let's be more curious about people. Sit down and don't just talk about yourself. Get some good questions to ask. Don't just say, how are you, and then turn and walk away. What's your passion? What's your dream? Go deep. I know some of you are like, oh Ben, I love small talk. Get past it. Get onto the deep talk. Risk it. Risk someone think you're a bit weird and make a connection. What I find amazing in Ephesians, it says that when we become Christians, we move from death to life. And then what it says is that we sit at the right side of Jesus. The true life, true living always flows from a place of sitting, a place of rest, a place of connection. One of my favourite authors, Paulo Coelho, I don't know if that's how you say his name, I've only ever read it, looking towards some South Asians to see whether, South Americans to see whether I'm saying it right. He says this, he says, the shortest distance between two people is a conversation. You'll never be more connected to your wife. You'll never be more connected to your friend. You will never be more connected to your God than when you're having a conversation. I'm just here with you. In a minute, we're going to get the kids in, we're going to get the youth in, and we're going to have communion. And it makes me wonder whether this is why Jesus makes communion the centerpiece of his church. Because he wants us to stop and to sit and to eat and to drink. In the early church, it wasn't quite as sacramental as we do it. They would just rip the bread and they would share it. And they would add bacon. Why not? Maybe they wouldn't. They were Jews. They would add some chicken. But it was a feast. It was about coming together. Community, communion. We are one because of Jesus. Because he broke his body. Because he shed his blood. He washes away the disunity and the division and the hate and the hurt. He breaks down the walls. He breaks down the cynicism. He laughs at our excellence in that nice laughter kind of a way. And he says, I don't need that. I just need you here with me. I'd love to ask you to stand. We'll do communion in a minute when we've got the kids and everyone in because we want to do it together. Walk, stand, sit. Where are you running? Where you're meant to be walking, standing, and sitting. I just want us to take a moment and to let the Holy Spirit speak into our lives. Because you know God is here, right? You know God is present, he is with you. As you were sitting, you know that Jesus was sitting with you. And maybe just in our hearts, let's just ask God, where does this sit with me? What are you really saying to me? What is it that you need me to do? Is it about my rootedness with you? Do I need to get right with you? Am I far? Am I dry?